So imagine a massive multi-million-dollar concrete bridge,
Okay.
and it's suspended over this completely pristine lagoon. But like, instead of a straight line designed to get traffic from point A to point B as fast as
Which is
possible.
usually the whole point of a bridge, right?
Right, exactly. But the engineers deliberately built this one as a giant circle.
Wait, a full circle?
A full circle.
Yeah.
It fundamentally defeats the entire utilitarian purpose of a bridge. I mean, it literally forces you to decelerate, turn your steering wheel, and spend, I don't know, an extra 60 seconds just hovering over the water before you reach the other side.
Oh, wow. So it's basically a piece of infrastructure that acts as like a physical speed bump for your entire state of mind.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, you don't build a circular bridge over a place like Laguna Garzón unless the culture commissioning it prioritizes, presence over productivity.
And that right there is exactly the psychological landscape we are mapping out today for you in this deep dive.
Yeah, we have some really amazing source material for this one.
We do. We are looking at this highly detailed sensory blueprint today. It's essentially, well, I like to think of it as a director's mood board mixed with deep cultural research.
That's a great way to put it. It's definitely not your standard dry Wikipedia page.
No, no, not at all. It's designed to capture the absolute essence of Uruguay. We're stepping completely away from, like, the dry GDP statistics and export numbers.
Because the mission here is to really understand the mechanics of a culture that has basically institutionalized the concept of slow living.
Mm-hmm.
Or, as they call it down there, tranquil.
Tranqui. I love that. But it's tricky, right? Because vibe is famously difficult to quantify.
Oh, for sure. But when you examine their architecture, or like the polyrhythms of their music and their daily rituals, you start to see something really interesting.
What's that?
That this laid-back national identity isn't just some happy accident of geography. It is an engineered reality.
It's a conscious choice.
Exactly. It's a collective choice that manifests in literally everything, from their urban planning to, like, how they build a fire.
Well, see, I initially thought this whole concept of a perpetually relaxed society sounded, I don't know, a bit romanticized, especially when you look at the sheer density of Montevideo.
Right, the capital.
Yeah, we are talking about a city sitting right on the Rio de la Plata that holds 1.3 million people. That is literally half the country's population packed into a single urban center.
It's a lot of people in one spot.
It is. And statistically, that level of density usually breeds isolation, right? Or
Yeah.
gridlock and like ambient anxiety. So how does a city that dense avoid the whole stressful high-speed metropolis trap?
So you really find the answer to that in the geometry of their public spaces, and particularly this place called La Rambla.
Okay, tell me about La Rambla.
Well, if you look at the coastline of Montevideo, you have this unbroken, sprawling promenade, and it stretches for over 14 miles.
14 miles of just coastline path.
Yeah. And crucially, it hasn't been carved up and sold off to private developers. There are no exclusive resorts blocking the water from the public.
Oh, wow. That's actually super rare.
It is. It serves as this massive social equalizer. When a city provides a huge democratic space dedicated purely to lingering, it fundamentally alters the cognitive pacing of the people there.
Because it removes the friction of gathering.
Exactly.
So the infrastructure itself is essentially telling the population, like, hey, you have permission to stop.
Yes. The city is built for gathering, not just for commuting.
That makes so much sense. And it makes me think about the music born in those streets, too. Specifically, candombe.
Oh, yes. The drumming.
Right. Our sources highlight that it's heavily rooted in the Afro-Uruguayan experience. But it's not just a genre you throw on Spotify and listen to passively. It's an active communal mechanism.
Yeah, the mechanics of candombe actually perfectly mirror the social fabric we're talking about here. So you have three distinct types of drums: the chico, the repique, and the piano.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is that none of them carry a melody in the traditional sense. And honestly, none of them make any sense in isolation.
So they have to be played together.
Right. The rhythm only emerges when all three interlock in this complex, rolling conversation. It requires absolute synchronization with your neighbors. You literally cannot play candombe alone.
I love that. That's a brilliant way to look at it. The interlocking rhythms of the drums mimic the way, like, the Spanish and African heritages have really integrated within the society.
Totally. And you see that peak during their carnival, which, by the way, is the longest in the world.
Wait, really? The longest?
Yeah. It's over 40 days of just relentless collective street theater. They have this thing called murga, which is a satirical, theatrical choir format.
Oh, right, the notes mention that. They use it to process political and social realities, right?
Exactly. They use art not just as an escape, but as a collective processing engine.
Mm.
And local artists, people like Jorge Drexler and bands like La Vela Puerca, they really carry that cultural DNA forward.
There was actually a lyric idea in the research notes that I thought captured this perfectly. It went, drums in the street, made in my hand, Montevideo rhythm you don't understand.
That is so good. It really paints the picture. But, that communal engine requires fuel, which kind of brings us to the duality of this culture.
Right, because Montevideo offers this deeply grounded urban rhythm.
Mhm.
But the moment you leave the capital and head east down the coast,
The whole thesis of slow living gets stress tested.
big time.
Yeah.
Stress tested by extreme wealth. I was honestly struck by the sheer whiplash of moving from the communal drumming of Montevideo into Punta del Este.
Yeah, Punta del Este is literally referred to as the Monaco of South America.
The Monaco. That tells you everything you need to know. You have this massive influx of Argentine and Brazilian capital, yacht culture, hyper-luxury fashion. Even the geography there feels kind of aggressive.
And so?
Well, you have the raw power of the Atlantic crashing into Playa Brava, which means rough beach, contrasted immediately on the other side by the calm waters of Playa Mansa.
That's true. The duality is built right into the beaches. And the architecture in Punta del Este reflects that desire to, stand out and dominate the landscape.
Like Casa Pueblo.
Yes. Casa Pueblo is that sprawling Mediterranean-style white structure built by the artist Carlos Paez Villarro. It's incredible. And then you have La Mano, which is literally a giant stone hand bursting out of the sand on the beach.
I've seen pictures of that. It's iconic.
They are loud, unapologetic declarations of human presence. But what's fascinating is how quickly that philosophy fractures as you continue moving east.
Yeah, because just a little ways down, you hit La Barra, which feels like a younger bohemian rejection of Punta's formality.
Right. La Barra is all youthful surfer energy. And they have that really iconic wavy bridge.
Oh, yeah, the undulating bridge. But then the real philosophical pivot happens just a few miles further down these dirt roads in Jose Ignacio.
Yes. Jose Ignacio is fascinating.
It represents extreme wealth, but it operates on a completely inverted metric of luxury. It's all intentionally low development, minimalist luxury.
Right. The lyric notes highlighted that contrast perfectly with the idea of going from quiet nets to neon nights, or being barefoot in sand and then wearing diamonds at night.
Barefoot in sand to diamonds at night. Like that. It sounds like if we were making a family analogy.
Let's hear it.
La Barra is the energetic, artistic teenager. Punta del Este is the flashy celebrity. And Jose Ignacio is the sophisticated older sibling who prefers, quiet wealth.
That is incredibly accurate. And those sources actually show a conscious choice by places like Jose Ignacio to resist overdevelopment.
But I have to push back on that a little bit. I mean, is it actually a preservation of simplicity, or is it just exclusivity masquerading as rustic charm?
That's a fair question.
Because they have intentionally blocked paved roads and towering hotels favoring, barefoot luxury and linen. It feels a bit like they're using immense capital to artificially freeze a fishing village in time.
I mean, that is a very valid critique, and there is undoubtedly an element of date keeping there. However, if we look at the mechanisms of their zoning laws, the primary function isn't just keeping people out.
What is it then?
It's keeping the noise out. It's a conscious rejection of the typical resort life cycle. Usually a beautiful place is discovered, it gets paved over, verticalized with skyscrapers, and ultimately destroyed by its own popularity.
Oh, for sure. We see that everywhere.
Right. But Jose Ignacio recognized that luxury can sometimes mean preserving peace. The most valuable commodity on Earth right now isn't a towering penthouse, it's unavailability.
It's silence.
Exactly. It's the privilege of walking on an unpaved road.
Okay, so they're essentially paying a premium for the absence of development. That's a fascinating pivot. But what happens when you strip away the luxury entirely and leave only the raw elements?
Well, then you enter what the blueprint calls the raw edge.
Right. Moving further east, the landscape and the lifestyle shift dramatically again. We are talking about the Rocha Coast and the Laguna region.
This area forces a real confrontation with the elements.
Yeah.
We move past the curated linen of Jose Ignacio into deep gaucho or cowboy territory.
And this is where the historic Charrua indigenous roots are most deeply felt, right?
Yes. You also have these historic coastal defense forts there, like Santa Teresa. The whole area is just a blend of rural simplicity and bohemian beach culture.
But Cabo Polonio is really the ultimate example of that.
Oh, definitely.
It is a remote town surrounded by endless sand dunes and a famous lighthouse. And crucially, it is entirely off the grid. No electricity grid, no paved roads.
It naturally attracts travelers and mystics who are looking to live a truly alternative lifestyle.
I mean, if you want to visit, let alone live there, you are dealing with the elements in a way that requires significant daily labor, which kind of shatters the illusion that slow living just means lazy living.
Completely. Living off the grid in Cabo Polonio is physically demanding. You rely on firewood and candlelight. It strips away the ambient hum of refrigerators and Wi-Fi routers.
And what you get in exchange for that labor is absolute presence. I mean, the wildlife alone, you are sharing these quiet waters with capybaras.
Yes. The notes lovingly refer to them as the largest rodents.
The largest, most relaxed rodents on Earth, plus sea lions and flamingos painting the lagoons pink.
And that actually brings us back to the Laguna Garzon Bridge.
The circular one we started with.
Exactly. The bridge sits right on the border of this wilder territory. And its circular design is directly connected to this region's core value of environmental conservation.
Because it forces drivers to slow down.
Right. It literally makes them observe the protected lagoon ecosystem rather than just speeding through it on their way to the next town.
That is brilliant. So we have all these wildly different regions, from the neon clubs of Punta to the off-grid dunes of Cabo Polonio. But across all of them, there is a unifying cultural thread.
Yeah, a unified operational system that ties every single Uruguayan together.
And we are talking about daily, non-negotiable rituals, anchors that hold the population steady, regardless of their tax bracket.
The most potent of those anchors is definitely the culinary architecture, specifically the asado.
Yes, the barbecue.
Yeah.
But we need to be very clear for anyone listening that the asado is fundamentally different from just throwing some burgers on a gas grill in your backyard.
Oh, absolutely. The sensory blueprint focuses heavily on the mechanics of the fire itself. It represents fire, iron, and community.
You were waiting for the flames to die down into those glowing embers, right?
Yes, the brasas.
Yes.
And that time delay is the entire point. The asado isn't just a method of food prep. It is a mechanism for social cohesion.
Because you can't write it.
Exactly. The hours it takes to tend that slow fire is enforced downtime. If you try to speed it up with chemical starters or high flames, you ruin the meat.
It demands patience. Alongside, of course, the legendary Chivito steak sandwich and their dulce de leche desserts.
Oh man, the food culture is incredible. But that slow burn of the asado is always accompanied by the defining cultural artifact of the entire region.
Might.
Yes,
Yeah.
the herbal tea.
Everywhere you look in this blueprint, it stresses that Maite is far more than just a drink. People are walking around with a thermos tucked under their arm and a gourd in their hand.
It doesn't matter if they are a banker in Montevideo or a barefoot surfer in La Barra. It is a daily friendship ritual.
It sounds less like your rushed morning coffee run, hitting the drive-thru, and more like the equivalent of gathering around the office water cooler. Except it's portable, deeply personal, and you do it with everyone you love.
That's a perfect way to describe it. Think about the etiquette involved. You have one person who prepares the gourd, pours the hot water, and passes it. Then that person drinks, hands it back, and it gets refilled and passed to the next person.
It's literally an unbroken circle. The phrase, tomamos mate, or shall we drink mate, isn't just asking if you're thirsty.
No, it's an invitation to connect. It ties you to the group. In a world that constantly pushes us toward individual consumption, like your own coffee cup, your own phone, screen passing the mate forces a shared experience.
It's a deliberate interruption of the daily grind, and you can see that mindset leak directly into the language they speak too.
The Rio Platense Spanish.
Exactly. The slang really shapes the laid-back tone of the country. You have words like beau.
Right, which is just a casual you or dude.
Yeah. And che, which implies an immediate baseline of friendship, like mate.
And ta, which just means okay.
And of course, the ultimate operational word, tranquille, meaning chill or relax.
Trunky is the linguistic equivalent of that circular bridge. It serves as a psychological anchor. When someone says tranqui, they are giving you cultural permission to de-escalate.
Let's just take a breath.
Right. These elements, passing the mate, tending a slow fire, saying tranqui, they act as daily reminders that connection and slowing down are active choices. They aren't just vacation novelties.
You even see that unpretentious vibe in their clothing. It's this cool mix of beachwear, like hoodies and being barefoot, blended with that gaucho influence.
Yeah, the bombacha trousers, heavy ponchos, boots.
It's a sartorial rejection of pretension. You don't need a suit to project value in a society that values presence. Which really brings us to the core utility of this deep dive for you listening right now.
Right, how to actually apply this.
Exactly, because you likely aren't walking barefoot in linen in Jose Ignacio today, and you might not be watching flamingos in a wild lagoon, but the underlying mechanics of this tranquil lifestyle are completely portable.
They really are. You can adopt the mindset of the mate ritual no matter where you live.
Right, it's about making time to stop, share, and be present with the people around you. You can choose to initiate that unbroken circle of connection in your own life.
And I think there's a really provocative thought we can leave you to ponder based on all of this, particularly looking at Cabo Polonio's intentional lack of development.
I love that place. So what's the thought?
Well, we spend so much of our time upgrading our lives with faster tech, smarter grids, instant delivery. We want everything immediately.
Constantly optimizing.
Right. But if places like Cabo Polonio intentionally reject electricity and roads just to preserve their unique identity and their tight-knit community.
Because the friction is what creates the meaning.
Exactly. So the question for you, the listener, is this. What modern convenience in your own life might you actually benefit from stripping away, just to reclaim a little bit of your own peace and connection?
That is such a great question to end on, because sometimes taking the long way around or building the bridge in a circle is exactly what we need to finally arrive where we're supposed to be.